Hi again. In this tutorial I will be covering the absolute basics of the scenario editor. So we just fired up command. Of course, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new blank scenario. We're currently over Florida, which I believe there are plenty of military bases, so we can definitely demonstrate the import and export functions. But before we do anything of the sort, the first thing that we need to consider is creating sides. So if we go to the editor and we go to add or edit sides, we can add sides. Now you can add multiple sides, you can change quite a few things in here, but for this we're just going to make an op4 and blue4. And we're just going to set them both to hostile. So when you click on a side, you can go to postures. You'll see all other sides and you can set them to hostile. Now when you have several different sides, you would have to go in and change them all. So you could actually make a scenario where allies are unfriendly with each other and puts them in an interesting position when both of their allies start fighting. Or you could have one side attacking another side and it's your job to defend your ally. So add, remove, rename, postures. You can set the doctrine here. This is probably going to be its own video sometime later. There's a lot of stuff in there. So then there's the side can be computer controlled only. So it is one of the things to keep in mind is, do you intend for the player to choose which side or not? So for this case, we're not going to do that. So we're going to click this is computer controlled only. And we will need to create missions and tell the enemy how to behave in order for them to do so. And then there's a can auto track civilians. You can check this and it will do as it says. And then there's awareness level. I'm leaving this to normal, but you can mess around with these and basically make it so that the enemy is aware of everything. And then you could set proficiency. So say we think that op4 should be made entirely of veterans who are training newer guys, we can do that. Or we could make this blue 4 team the aces. It doesn't really matter. Now, what it seems that proficiency does to a unit is decrease the time it takes to respond to issues. And I could show you an example of that later. Alright, so we've got our side set up. We're going to just set everything to regular just because it's easier. So we'll start with op4. Now, we can go to the editor and we can load units from a file. And it comes up with this entire menu here. Import and export, and we could go find the United States. And surprise, surprise, there's several different imports here. Who would have guessed? So we're over Florida right now, so we could select individual fields and create them. So if we look here at Eglin, you'll see this is quite a massive facility with, well, looks like lots of gas, lots of very long runways, lots of hangars, ammo shelters, ammo bunkers on the surface, more shelters for aircraft, open parking. Now this base looks like it could hold like 300 aircraft maybe. And it's got a lot of runway access points. A lot of them. Alright, so we're going to load this airbase here just to demonstrate what we can do. So now what we can do with this is right click on it and we could see magazines here. Now we'll see a list of every single magazine shelter here, and we can add munitions to them. If we zoom in and hit the numpad 9 key, we can ungroup everything and see exactly where everything is. So here's one of the runways, here's a parking spot, an access point, tons of ammo bunkers. Now, we're going to make our own airfield in a second, but if we wanted to use this import file, we could. Let's just say, give ourselves half an airbase if you're concerned. I mean, these are static objects. I don't think it's going to tax your system too much, but you could always do that. Alright, so what we're going to do instead is make our own. So let's just zoom in and we're going to add a unit. We're going to make this a runway. Now, when creating a runway lengthwise, what we need to consider is what's going to be taking off. For example, a 1400 meter runway is short enough, you probably aren't going to be able to get, say, a B-52 to take off from that runway. So we're going to select a 5600 meter runway, which is massive. There are other sizes in between if you wanted to make a less realistic runway or more realistic runway for a certain scenario. And now we're going to give the airbase a taxiway. And these taxiways are going to be on both sides of the runway here. And we're going to put an runway access point on both. So we're going to make it for very large aircraft. And now we're going to start making some hangars. So we can just go with some large tarmac spaces. Here is 4x very large aircraft, small aircraft, medium. So we're just going to put some tarmac space here. And just to move things around afterwards, you can just hit the M key and then move them. In order to copy, it would be Shift C and just copy over and move and place your cursor in the middle, left click, and it's there. Left Shift C, left click, and we've got everything moved. Let's move that over a little. Alright, and now we could add some ammo bunkers. So let's add them on the surface. This is open parking and just surface bunkers. So now we've got an airfield. So I'm just going to hit G to group them all up together, and we're going to call this Op4 Airbase. As is significantly smaller than Eglin. Maybe we want to create some barracks or anything else, but for this, their goal is to hit the aircraft, not the people. If they hit the people, that sucks, but their goal is to take out the aircraft. So now, if we go to Edit Aircraft, we can edit aircraft for this entirety of the space, or we could hit the numpad 9 key, and we could edit individual tarmac spaces. So if we go to edit this aircraft space right here, we can then go to the country and select United States. And let's give them some F-16s. Let's do F-15s. So let's just give them some F-16C Eagles. Now, this is a 4X very large aircraft. So if let's say we want to give this 36 F-15s, it should come up with an error saying it can't fit that many. And it fits 5. Now instead of putting 5 there, we're going to put 4 there. And we can select that. Now if we go back to the group view, this airfield should show 4 aircraft residing in that AC tarmac space. Now let's just say we want to find another tarmac space and go back to the United States, put in some F-16s. Give them block 50s. And again, if we type in 36, it obviously can't fit 36, but the F-16 being a small aircraft, it should be able to have more than 4 or 5 like the F-15. So let's see what we could cram in there. So okay, so we can cram in 8 F-16s there. So it looks like they do a good job of modeling how much space stuff takes, and there's some consideration there. Now let's go on to ammo bunkers, since obviously our 12 aircraft aren't going to be very useful without magazine stores. Now if you're in a rush to create a scenario, or you know that there's no reason to model ammunition because the airbase won't be attacked, there are other things we can do. There is always the ability to turn on unlimited magazines at naval and air bases, but we're not doing it that way. So if we right click on this airbase and we go over to magazines here, we will see that the 4 bunkers that we have made these 4 bunkers that we have the ability to add weapons in them, and they will store weapons. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to filter by keyword, and I'm going to type in AIM 120. So I'm going to give this bunker 8 AIM 120D AMRAAMs. And I'm going to give this next bunker AIM 9, I believe it's the X, Sidewinders. And this airbase is going to have 48. Actually, I'm going to give them 200. I want to demonstrate something with this. Now, if you want to set an abnormally large amount, you can do that. And obviously, most of these weapon records here will have a 0 out of 10,000, but we can use the preset weapon racks more often than not. Now, with it set up this way, we have a bunker here with Sidewinders, bunker here with AMRAAM, empty, and empty. So if this bunker right here were to be blown up, we would lose all of our Sidewinders. This is, of course, important to consider when you are preparing an actual operation. So let's just say that these 4 F-15 Eagles, I want to arm them. So let's start with ready and arm. I'm sorry, I'm going ahead, aren't I? So what we can do to arm aircraft in this view here is right-clicking and going to F6, Air Operations. And if we right-click on an F-15, go to Ready and Arm, we can see what our options are. So we have damn near infinite amount of armed ferry options, but we don't have enough AMRAAM to basically arm all of our aircraft with 6 AMRAAM. So it looks like we could arm 2 of our aircraft with 4 AMRAAM each and 4 Sidewinders, or we could arm them with 2 and 2 and have a lot more of them up. Now, I would recommend that we add more AMRAAM, so why don't we do that? So I'm going to select this one right here, and I'm going to add 160 AMRAAM to our inventory. Now when we go to these and we select them all, we should see that we can equip all of our F-15s with AMRAAM for several sorties, but we cannot equip Legion IRST pods or Talon hate pods. So now let's go over to let's equip these now. I'm going to put 2 of them on maintenance. Now, one thing that I would always say to consider when you're making a scenario is putting a certain amount of aircraft on maintenance. Now, the reason that you would add them and still put them on maintenance is they're still targets that could be hit. So that is important when you're coming up with a score and somebody's hitting your airbase, that they're doing damage, because, you know, hitting an aircraft that's on maintenance is still taking the aircraft out of the fight. Even though it's not currently in the fight, it will never be in the fight if a 2,000-pound bomb crashes through its hangar. So we'll set 2 of them for maintenance, and we'll ready and arm these other 2 with the standard loadout. Now, one thing I should probably consider here. So if we look here for surge operations, we can set enable quick turnaround, which is 2 sorties maximum. So basically, if these guys fire all their missiles and land, they can rearm in 30 minutes and go back out. But they can only do this for 2 sorties maximum. So they could take off, they can land, and they can go back up, and then they could take off and land, but then that's it. They have to come back down for maintenance and everything else. So if we look here, under ready time for surge operations is 3 hours, and sustained operations to be 20 hours. Although I do believe if they're set to 20 hours that they would still be able to get 2 sorties on 30-minute turnaround. I guess that's basically just switching out pilots and getting the aircraft refueled and ready to go back up. So it says it here that basically they can do day and night 2 sorties, but in order to do these quick sorties at that much turnaround, it needs to be 4 hours of flying time. So if the first sortie is 4.5 hours, then they're going to just come down and they're going to go into their maintenance mode for 3 hours or 20 hours, depending on what you set. It says time of day and night, all weather, and then it estimates how long the cap will be. So 175 miles cap at, actually 175 minutes, so almost 3 hours, assuming that they're going to transit and loiter at 36K, 2 minutes of combat, and that they're going to have a reserve for bingo fuel, and then basically these codes determine what they do when they run out of ammunition, and return to base after 1 engagement. And basically that they will allow targets of opportunity to be engaged by guns. So we could ready this immediately. We could ready this immediately and ignore magazines, or we could hit OK and ready, and in that case these will be set to be ready in 3 hours. Additionally, we could set ready time, and we could change this to 6 hours if we wanted to. So they're just coming off maintenance or something to that effect, and we won't have them. Now if we go to the Falcons, what we will see, let's put a few of them on maintenance, but let's also look here and see why we cannot equip any of them. So we don't have defensive ECM pods for them. Now that is going to prevent these Falcons from being able to be used for anything more than ferry. But these two are going to go on maintenance, so let's ready them for maintenance. And we're going to work with these 6 right here. So let's see what we need in order to get them able to be airborne. So say we want them to go up with Mavericks. This is what we would need in our magazines. We need some AGM 65s. We would need, optionally, we would need AIM 120Ds. We have plenty of them, so that's not a worry. We have 2 AIM 9X Sidewinders per. These are not optional. We need them for self-defense. We need 1 of these sniper pods per aircraft. And we need this ECM pod. And for whatever reason, drop tanks are not modeled that we can run out of. So what we can do now is just go to our magazines and start adding these weapon records. I'm going to keep this here just so I can see it for reference. So if I hit F5, we bring this up. And if I go to add a weapon record, going to filter by a keyword, or we could select only compatible with host aircraft. Now this one right here is easy to look through. Now we can actually add drop tanks here, but it doesn't seem to care. We're going to add them anyway. So it looks like I'm just going to add a ton of them. I want all of my aircraft to be able to use these 370 gallon drop tank. Now I've never actually messed around with that one before. Alright, so sniper pod. Or this is an egg. I see the Mavericks. So I'm going to add an open, oops, add selected, and I'm going to add 120 Mavericks. So they've got a substantial amount of Mavericks now. But we need this AN/AAQ pod. So it looks like we will need to add this. So if I expand this out, I should be able to see, there we go. So I could add 1 per, or I could just add all of them here. So we've got 12 aircraft, so we'll add 12 pods. And we need this ANALQ DCM. And again, we're going to add 12. So now if we close this out, I do believe we have everything we need to ready up these 6 aircraft for several sorties. Okay, so it looks like these drop tanks aren't modeled. I'm not going to worry about that. Now there are 2 things we could do. So let's just say that we did not add those AMRAAM packages there to, the AMRAAM addition that we made. We would have a shortage of AMRAAM. So in the interest of getting these aircraft up, we could decide to exclude optional weapons, and these aircraft would not take off with AMRAAMs. Now that could be more dangerous, so you probably wouldn't want to do that, but you could. So now let's look at a strike package's radius and profile. So still time of day, limited all weather, so I believe there is a way to model weather in this game which would reduce its effectiveness. So this is saying that 370 nautical mile strike radius if the profile is high, low, high. So fly high and cruise towards the target, go low to avoid SAMs, pop back up at the last minute, drop your ordnance, and run away. So if we hit OK ready, these aircraft will ready up in the amount of time it takes. We could set times ready to set it to 15 minutes. So days 0, hours 0, minutes 15, and these aircraft will be ready very soon. So why did we make our own airbase instead of using the prefabricated, let me see if I could find it, single unit airfield? So why did I do that instead of just going to this single unit airfield right here, which is 1 unit? And the reason being is if this airfield were to be attacked, then this ammo bunker, if this were destroyed, this is what you would lose. If this ammo bunker was destroyed, that's what you'd lose. And so on. If this hangar was attacked, you wouldn't lose anything. If this hangar was attacked, you'd lose all your F-16s. If this hangar were attacked, you'd lose all your F-15s, and so on and so forth. And if this runway was attacked, you would be using one of these runway grade taxiways. If these access points were all attacked, they would never get to the runways. So single unit airfields, I say, are good if you don't believe that the mission will include an attack on the airbase. But if it does, I would avoid these like the plague, because if you are able to attack them, it's probably going to be with like a nuke or something. Otherwise, it's just not going to model everything correct with what you hit and what damage is caused. So if it's an offensive mission purely where you're just attacking, yeah, that's fine. If the enemy isn't throwing anything back at you. If you're attacking and you're not bombing the airfield and you just want jets to scramble, then yeah, that's an efficient way to do it. If that makes sense. Okay, so we have our OP4 airbase that we created here. And we want to save it. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Command Air Naval Operations file system here, just to show one thing. So, there are 2 places where I tend to save stuff to. The first is Scenarios. So I made this folder here called My Sandbox. So if I save scenarios in here, they'll show up. The other place we could save stuff into is import and export. I believe I made a My Sandbox folder there as well. And if we save things there, then we can call them back up for future use. So let's just say I want this OPT4 airbase. So I could go to import and export, save selected units groups to a file. I'm going to call this OPT4 airbase. We can fill this out if we want to. Now I'm going to take this link, copy that in, and we're going to make another folder in here called USA. I'm going to save this. So now, if we wanted to create a new scenario, and we went down to load, import, export, load units from a file, and we went to My Sandbox, we will now find that airbase. Now, onto fleets, which are similar to airbases. So we'll right click, control right click, add unit, and surface, so we'll select surface ships, Ticonderoga, and let's add the most current version of it. These are probably all the same or similar, but we'll see. Alright, so now that we're dealing with a ship, I can demonstrate what I wasn't able to demonstrate before with weapons. So now this ship comes with certain weapons that are already on board it. So if you were to look at this, you could see that this Ticonderoga has a few machine gun mounts on it. You could change those if you wanted to, say, 25mm cannons by removing this weapon record, or removing this mount and adding another mount. So what you would do is you would add a mount, filter by keyword, and you would select the appropriate one. Select this, and then you could set which sides you wanted this weapon to be able to be shot from. Do we add it? I don't see it. There it is. And then you could do the same for one on the other side. So we just added a second Bushmaster emplacement on this. And now we could go in and find one or two of these machine gun mounts and remove them. Or we could just leave this as the upgraded Ticonderoga that we're making as a hypothetical unit that has additional Bushmasters on it. Now, let's go down to the VLS cells in particular. So right now this comes with 64 cells, 63 of them are used. So we can empty all these cells out if we wanted to. I'll just say we don't want tomahawks on this cell. and instead we want, say, 40 ESSMs, Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. We could do that. Now, there might be additional items you would want added. For example, if we add add a weapon record, we can still add things to this VLS cell, provided they can be added. So if we go to filter in LRASM, we can add a weapon mount for the long-range anti-ship missile. And since it's a 64 cell, we could add it to be 0 out of 64, and we could do the same for this other one. Now you could also set these to, say, only be able to carry 32 if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. You can always go ahead and set them. So let's say we want these 2 extra spaces to be long-range anti-ship missiles. We can do that. Now if we click off the Ticonderoga and back on it, you'll notice that we have long-range anti-ship missiles equipped and can now use them to target ships. Now, the same thing goes for adding aircraft. If, let's say, we wanted to add an MH-60, what's the most current version? Seahawk. So now, I believe a Ticonderoga can carry 2 Seahawks, so if we add 3, it should tell us an error saying we can only fit 2. There we go. Now if we wanted to equip these with weapons, we would just ready and arm them the same way with whatever is pre-made in the magazine. So it looks like a few rockets, a few Hellfires are carried in the magazine, and a bunch of torpedoes. So we'll ready them with a bunch of torpedoes and let our Ticonderoga's guns do the rest. Or if, let's just say, you wanted to remove the flight deck completely and just go with something ridiculous and trolly, you could do that too, just by going back to F8 for weapon records. And add a weapon record. So the Abrams fires an M256. So what we're going to do is we're going to give no aircraft, and we're just going to put an Abrams in the back of the ship. I know it's ridiculous, but whatever. And it's going to fire high explosive. Well, I would need to be able to find it. Oh, add a mount. I probably added it as a weapon record, which wasn't what I wanted to do. So I'm going to add a Leopard main battle tank to the back of it. So here we go. We've got a Leopard main battle tank on the back of this Ticonderoga, filling up its own magazine slot and preventing any aircraft from taking off, but we have a tank on the back of our Ticonderoga now. Now, I don't recommend that you do this, but I think it's important to understand how the magazines and weapon mounts work if you ever want to make your own custom ships to be more productive. Alright, so that'll conclude today's tutorial. Next time we will go into some more basic stuff of the scenario editor, like time, making a briefing, difficulty rating, and then probably a good amount on missions, because we need the enemy AI to behave in a certain way in order for us to have any sort of scenario at all. And then after that's all covered, we can go through things like events, triggers, actions, scoring, and eventually publishing. Alright, that's it for now. Have a good day.